Hello and welcome to the dungeons. Dayman here. Today, well, I woke up back in the outpost. Thought I'd be in my own bed by now, but I guess it was more than just a dream. If you're just joining us for the first time, I have some bad news and some good news. I made a deal with the Soul Keeper for knowledge about this game. He offered me mythical weapons in exchange for more than I bargained for. He took my humanity, my beautiful goblin face. Life on Eternity's been hard. I've been having technical issues with all my technology. I've had to repower my live tablet several times with power gems. Had to re-record this video even because a dragon flew overhead and cut out my signal, so bear with me if there's any strange technological issues. Today, however, we will be talking about the mythical hammer. Oh yeah, baby. Mwah! I don't even have lips to kiss you yet. Maybe if you learn something, I can get a little bit of my humanity back. So, today we're going to be talking about not just the best and worst matchups with our mythical hammer, but also talking about some hidden features and best practices on how to utilize it. I've been often cited as saying that the mythical hammer is the best because of its short cooldown and reliability. Let's check on that now. I say it's a 5-second cooldown, so let's check. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, baby, yeah! So, there it is, proof in the pudding. This thing is a wonderful, wonderful tool because of how consistent it is, and you can always rely on it. So looking at our encounter design, we're not going to jump straight into our best and worst matchups. We're first going to bully some zombies to demonstrate some of the best practices and hidden features with the weapon. Then we'll be talking about swarms, which have many reasons why the hammer is a standout. Armored warriors have a tendency for bladed weapons to glance against them, but this hammer simply just doesn't care. Now, imps, these boys love to run up on you, and I'll tell you one thing. This hammer don't care none, because we got that thing on us. Flying enemies have a proclivity towards dodging, and the hammer once again says, you can't dodge a bomb. Now, the Uber Mage. This is one of the few mythical weapons that has a good matchup against the Uber Mage. And it even does pretty well at maintaining distance due to its short cooldown with the Wasp. You'll still probably see me die to that Defiler. Why does it gotta just always thrust you to death, you know what I mean? Yuck. Alright, some honorable mentions before we get started. Skeletal Boss. The radius of the explosion does fairly well to hit its hitbox of its face. However, you are playing support with Skeletal Boss more so than getting up in the fray. The middling damage of the hammer makes the large health pool of the Doomer a long and drawn-out fight, and relying on Throne with the Octolus can be an annoying challenge, despite the fact that this does fairly well at blocking its flying eyes. Alrighty, with those notes in mind, let's get active. I'll keep us in the first person to begin with because there's something I want to demonstrate with our mythical hammer. Now this thing has a hair trigger. Anything that makes contact with your hammer is going to cause it to, get disrupted. However, that's kind of a strength in its own right, because if I want to place enemies more accurately, I can smack the hammer in the direction I want enemies to fly. If they are near a wall even, I can choose to strike them against hard targets, allowing them to take additional damage. This is another great tool if you have swarms running up on you and you want to change the pace of the fight. You just saw slowing take effect there, but I can get it here and hit one or two of them back to keep the fight staggered if my slowing doesn't trigger. Alright, my bones are starting to stink. So once again, I can choose the radius that I want that to come into and target a few enemies to keep the fight at my pace. Another great thing that you could be doing is you do not need to hit them. You can throw the hammer, and that will also be a great way that you can.
Uh-oh, you're tickling my toes.
Alright, here we see flying enemies. I can clear them all out in a massive swath. Another advantage of flying enemies being present during a fight with other enemies is that that radius is so large that it can end up damaging. I must have added too little. Now, once again, I can start trying to get these guys where I want them. But they're grouped up like this, stagger a few, fight the next wave. Now I can also use that strike in melee to keep the fight going. And while I'm fighting, I can be charging that weapon and get that strike off. However, keep in mind, you need that weapon to be fully charged before you strike against it. Now, a great tool for managing people is by letting them rush up on you and then send them down and strike them down while they fight. Now, it's worth mentioning that I am running area damage and slowing on my weapon, which means I'm pretty much just running area damage. Slowing, as slowing takes priority over area damage. So as the fact that they both have a chance to be rolled means that that priority slow will be the weapon perk that triggers the most. Imps love to run up on you, and this just turns them into little cannonballs flying away from you every time they try. And because it's such a short cooldown, the moment they run back up on you, they fly back. So if you ever have a problem with how these guys run on you, this weapon is the GOAT at dealing with imps. Another nice thing I like to do with these guys, I mean, I could just keep these guys flying back. It's really not a problem, which makes these very challenging enemies very, very easy. I mean, literally by the time they can catch up with me, it's just go time. You can also start to displace them off of ledges to get a little extra damage. And that radius is just so good at dealing with enemies that far away from you. And this is another great advantage of that slowing. You can take that fight at your own pace every time. And what we just saw there is something very worth mentioning. I hope the camera picked it up, but there is a purple particle effect that takes place when you slow an enemy. Now, the explosion radius does not transfer over your area damage or slowing or even your attack power. But if the physical weapon makes contact, then the slowing effect can take place. Now, what makes the hammer so good against the Uber Mage is not just the fact that it can handle its one of the few weapons that can actually manage its barrier, with the radius being so large that it can strike into that radius, but it also is very good at being able to manage swarms, as mentioned. So let's see if we can get that Uber Mage to summon its nasty little shield. And it's going to be taking a lot of that passive damage due to the fact that I can strike at its spawns that it surrounds itself with. So it's just is a great tool. Now, mind you, the hammer's middling damage does leave a little bit to be desired. And while we're here, I think it's worth mentioning that this weapon offers 360 protection. Even when I cannot see an enemy directly behind me, I am capable of dropping my hammer and sending them flying. I shouldn't have left my back exposed to a boss monster, but I wanted to demonstrate that strength of the weapon. Alrighty. Now, we're not here to win fights, we are here to discuss how you can win fights, and the tools you have to beat those bosses. I kind of stopped taking the fight seriously, so that's on me. Now, I hate the Wasp, as you all know. In fact, we're going to start calling it the Defiler, because it chooses to thrust you to death, and it just feels wrong. So, once again, the distance managing of this weapon is very good against the Wasp, because you can patty cake it, even if it wants to dodge, or if it flies up closer to you, just you can drop it and it'll send it flying. Uh-oh, I should have been waiting to discuss these things before it could touch me. But if I had not waited for that, if I instead waited for it to come near me, I could have continued to patty cake or drop the weapon at a range that keeps the Wasp away from you, and you can strafe against its projectiles. But that Wasp is a dang old nightman, a dayman hater, I'll tell you that much. Now, for our worst encounters, we'll discuss those, because what makes them worst encounters is that the time it takes to beat down the enemies. And those are the Octolus and the Doomer. Now, Doomer is not a bad matchup in that it doesn't do well against it, and it will manage the spawns that it summons to its belly. But again, you're relegated to throwing the weapon for both the Octolus and the Doomer because of their melee attacks. You can get a little in on the Doomer every now and again, but the fact that you're forcing yourself into a thrown weapon, it doesn't feel that good for the hammer, and it's not its greatest strength because it eliminates its area damage effect. Alright, I hope you learned something. If you did, I'll know, because my humanity will start to return to me. I think I got a few souls for the Soul Keeper. Maybe he'll be satisfied, but the fact that I died might work against that. We'll see how that turns out. Now, remember to wash those bones and disinfect your face mask, baby. Peace.